Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a much-needed Winnipeg Jets victory. I can tell you this right now, behind the scenes, a massive collective sigh of relief from the Winnipeg Jets organization, knowing that they needed that one. Looked a little dicey. At some point, Jets go up 3-0. Gap closes to 3-2, and the Nashville Predators were pushing and looked to have the Winnipeg Jets on their heels. In the end, the Jets pull ahead to 4-2, and then they get the empty netter to make it 5-2. The final score makes it look like it was no biggie. It was a biggie. It was a biggie for the Winnipeg Jets to get through that. They needed that victory. Hard to square away blowing a 3-goal lead to the last place team in the league, if that's what would have ended up happening on this night. So it's nice to be able to hop into the old Toyota and go for the opening drive, the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive, after a win for the fans out there who I know are, that's what you're looking for. That's what you're hoping for. So let the hair blow in the breeze, that kind of stuff as we kind of take this one. I'm going to say this. I see that there's a number of comments here starting out early where people are saying, maybe a little bit, like Gift Guy says, here we go. A win is a win, even against a bottom feeder. Someone else says here yesterday, they seem to be a little bit, Robert Lowen says, still not a great game, but hopefully one which builds some confidence. Seems to be this one here by Stephen Braun Coaching says, mediocre, never felt so good. Matthew Hyman says, plan the parade. So there's a little bit of tongue in cheek here right now. I think this is not exactly the kind of game that built a whole bunch of believers out of the Winnipeg Jets. The point of the conversation that we had in the last Kenny and Renny, I think I've needed to alter my kind of perspective on how to deliver these shows, because for the longest time, I think what you were waiting for was the Winnipeg Jets to return to what they were last season. As I've said, you don't need to agree with it. I don't think Kenny fully agrees with it. I'm at the stage where I take a look at the Winnipeg Jets. I think they're a different team than they were last year, and I think they need to be covered in a way that you kind of erase what they did last year. I don't think it's fair to hold the expectations of the President's Trophy winning 2024-2025 Winnipeg Jets compared to this Winnipeg Jets team. So rather than going from, hey, why is this team not in the first place in the NHL? I think you got to start looking at this from the perspective of, hey, this is a team that's in a dogfight for the playoffs. The way that they've allowed teams like the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, to get ahead of them in the standings by that distance, you're probably looking at a team that is going to be in a dogfight for a wild card spot. And I think that's how I need to approach breaking this down, right? Rather than lamenting at times the Winnipeg Jets not being what they were last year, that's last year. Okay, over a quarter of the way through the season here. One of the reasons why that mark of the U.S. Thanksgiving and, that being such an important mark and trying to be above the playoff line at that point, which is, it's crazy to say, hey, team doesn't have a chance to make the playoffs. Now they're below the playoff line at U.S. Thanksgiving. The idea behind it is that there's typically enough runway a quarter of a way through the season for you to kind of show who you are as a team. There will be late bloomers. The St. Louis Blues did it in 2019. This Nashville Predators team did it just 2 years ago, where they had a horrible start. We're well below the playoff line at U.S. Thanksgiving and ended up making the playoffs as a wild card team. So I think it's just time to take a look at this and take a look at the Winnipeg Jets and don't skew expectations based on anything else. Let's take this year for what it's worth. And what it's worth is that the Winnipeg Jets are right now in the middle of a dogfight and came into this game a little bit walking wounded, 4 straight losses, confidence shaken. Talking with Scott Arniel before the game, he said he needed a higher compete level out of his team that he was not getting. He openly said that the 9 forwards outside of the top line were squeezing their sticks, that they were kind of in their head magnifying the mistakes they made, because a lot of times when you're not scoring and you get scored on, you just know that you're losing that battle that night. And when your team keeps losing, and you're losing your battles, it's hard not to take it personally. It's hard not to kind of beat yourself up about it. So the Winnipeg Jets come into this a vulnerable team. I think that showed a little bit in the near comeback that the Nashville Predators were pushing for. But Winnipeg Jets come out, get an early goal in this game. I thought that was important if you're trying to plant your flag in the ground earlier on and you're the Winnipeg Jets. Their record this year has been atrocious when they don't score first. They're not scoring first quite often. They hadn't scored first, I think, in the last 4 games that they'd lost. So it was important to get the start there. Sometimes the importance of the start is that once the ball starts rolling, you can build up a lead the way that they did in this game here, making it 2-0 and then 3-0. Capitalizing again on the mistakes made by the Nashville Predators. I thought the Winnipeg Jets, this is back to them winning a game where they just made less mistakes than the Nashville Predators did on the Nino Niederreiter goal. Steven Stamkos just absolutely walked by Nino Niederreiter. I mean, you won't see many easier goals than the Winnipeg Jets making one pass from back by their net to a defender up in the boards and then over to a streaking Nino Niederreiter who just skates right straight in and gets a shot on net. Winnipeg Jets will take it. So the less mistake-prone team on this night gets them out of this rut. And I just think that now I'm not going to be one of these guys who's going to turn around and say, okay, well, like, a lot of people are saying there, hopefully it's something they can build on, or this is what got them going, and this is what shakes them loose. Finally you get some secondary scoring, which is extremely important for this team that had none outside of the top line of the Winnipeg Jets since going all the way back to the Columbus Blue Jackets game. But you get the sense of a player like Cole Perfetti, who's been building his game, finally getting one in. Maybe that's going to lead to a little bit more. Jets haven't been that far behind in a lot of the games that they've played so far down the stretch here. In this last little bit of the slump. So if you start getting some secondary scoring, maybe some of those losses turn to wins. A good game to snap a streak if you're the Winnipeg Jets. A good game in which your top line continues to show that it's going to get its stuff done on this. I thought Eric Comrie played a very good game, although I'll say it right now before any kind of build-up. I don't think the second goal that is scored on Eric Comrie is scored on Connor Hellebuck, but I also think that he battled. Did a really good job looking through the traffic that was created on this night. All in all, there was enough things working on this night that the Winnipeg Jets get to say that they have won one game straight rather than losing 5 games straight. And that is, at this stage, all that really matters for a team that, had they found a way to lose this game tonight, may have been really, really lost in the woods. At least now they move on to Buffalo. We'll see what happens in Buffalo. That's my take on the whole thing. As I wind down the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. And this will be it. Our last offer for November. This is November. It's time to Toyota. At Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, finance the 2025 Tacoma truck from 5.69% with up to a 1% loyalty rate reduction and $1,750 in accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 1st. It's 2 days away, folks. And when I say 2 days away, more like a day and 2 hours and just about 10 minutes and 45 seconds. So you got to hurry. The offer ends December 1st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Make sure you tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you. Okay, that's it. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, I know that people are keeping an eye out for the missed green car. Sea Mist, is that what it's called?
Yes.
In the background there.
Yes, the Monterey Mist. Yes,
Monterey Mist. There you go. I knew people
special edition. Special edition. Looks bluer today than green.
And Gift Guy's putting it out, reporting live from the garage. It's Kenny. I didn't know that I was getting combed over here. Steve Braun coaching saying, Sean, you can't make the bed for us. I actually thought of it, and I thought, you know what? Let's just serve the people first. So this is just an example of Renny putting, the audience before Renny in this situation here, as we always try to do. I got to say, Ken, loving the Hockey Fights Cancer Night.
Sharp.
These were sent out by the folks at Sportsnet. So this isn't necessarily from Frankie and the boys, although the suit, everything else.
Yeah.
But always important to show those kind of things. Didn't get into the broadcast, but talked to Scott Arney, who said on days like this, he always thinks about his brother who is fighting multiple myeloma. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I actually think I'm probably screwing it up a little bit, but this is a battle that's been ongoing for 5 years. And you could just hear the pride in the voice of Scott Arneal when he talked about his big brother taking on this challenge. So all those people out there, cancer is one of those things that touches absolutely everybody. So thinking of everybody like that on a day like this, and also thinking I like how this goes along with the Vittorio Rossi gear that I got going on here, because Frankie and the boys, they can take anything and make it work with anything. So you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. You can even bring stuff along. Say, I want it to kind of go with something like this. They'll get it done because they're Frankie and the boys, and that's what they do. Make sure you tell them Kenny and Renny sent you, folks. All right, Ken, what'd you take away from tonight's game?
Yeah, interesting game on a lot of fronts. On a side, your internet is a little wonky here. You're cutting out a little bit here and there. But as for the game itself, you nailed it. I mean, this is not a plan the parade route type of effort, but the Jets needed certain things to get done, and they accomplished quite a few things on their checklist. Secondary scoring being the most important thing probably overall, outside of the checking element. I think they were pretty good in terms of what they limited in terms of chances against. I'm with you 100%. Eric Comrie made himself small on the second goal. And again, it's reverse VH. We get it. Guys are going down. That's how they're taught. But just a little bit too much room for me, Sean, on the goal on the backhand by Evangelista, who, again, has done an exceptional job of late and is starting to cook for the Predators on a team that's looking for somebody to get them going. He's been playing quite well. In terms of the Jets, again, again, hadn't scored in 5 games, hadn't scored first in 5 games. That was all obviously a big boost for them, and no surprise that the top line got them going just 47 seconds into the contest. We know Cole Perfetti has been looking skyward a lot lately, Sean. The frustration has been palpable for him, but what he was able to do, and again, it's classic, right? You get you get between 6 and 12 high danger chances, and the goal that finally goes in is one that you don't hit completely, right? And again, it's not a full changeup, but it's definitely a knuckleball that Annunen had trouble with. He didn't get all of it. But again, I mean, he had tons of chances even in this game, Sean. I mean, he had a glorious chance that he probably hit a little bit too soon earlier on in the contest. So I would say that Cole, you were in the building, Sean. You saw the replay. I mean, I just saw it on TV. That was an "it's about effing time" look to the sky, is what I saw there from Cole. We know that Cole is incredibly hard on himself, and sometimes that holding yourself to a high standard is a great thing. There have been times where he gets a little bit too down in the dumps on himself. And then it kind of seeps in once in a while. But again, you could tell the effort was still there. He battled through a lot of things today. He got rocked on the boards by Weisblatt at least once in this game, but he kept going to the hard areas, and that's what you like to see from a player when he's going through a rough patch. Again, there's been lots of people talking about Luke Schenn in our chat room, but there's Luke Schenn today playing a pretty physical game against a team. You knew he was going to be motivated for this one, Sean. He said all the right things in the post game, but I mean, veteran guys don't like to be sat out. He was a physical force. He had 2 assists in the game. Got got his slap shot through on Connor's goal. He made a really good cross ice rink wide pass to Nino Niederreiter on his goal that you talked about. I didn't love Stamkos's back check on Cole Perfetti
goal as well.
to be honest. Again, a lot of things are happening on that play. It's Perfetti starts the play along the boards. Jonathan Taves with the one-handed pass to Nemesnikov, and the defense were kind of spinning. They didn't cover. The coverage was poor, but Stamkos also didn't have the slot covered either. So again, you and I have seen Steven Stamkos at some of his best moments in his career. Right now, he's just going through a little bit of a tough go right now. I think there's no doubt he's got the offense going a little better lately, but it just this is why we talk about it's not always greener. And again, you understand that he wanted to stay in Tampa. He looked at a spot that looked like a good fit for him, and it just has not worked out. And Sean, he's not holding up his end of the bargain either. That is pretty apparent. And it's hard to watch for a guy. We've seen him at his best. This is a good person. He loves the game, has given a lot to the game, has had to go through a lot of adversity. Right now, he's nowhere near his level, and it must be frustrating for him. It must be frustrating for Andrew Brunette. It must be frustrating for Barry Trotz, who signed the contract. He's got to get himself going, and that's again, just don't want to be going on a side trip to the buffet, but it's been odd to see. That's for sure.
Well, you know what? You'd said having a bit of a hard time.
No, that's not close. He's not close to his standard.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me that I walk away from that. Okay, listen. Not only have we seen Steve Stamkos do amazing things, and I think at one time Steve Stamkos can rightfully say that at one time he was the best player in the NHL.
You bet.
For a stretch of time, and then when, little things like when he came back for that stretch in the bubble and scored that one goal, he had that injury. He came in flying down the wing, scores a really important goal. It ends up being, an important goal on the way to the Tampa Bay Lightning winning their first ever Stanley Cup. So huge moment for him. And I think one of the moments that always stood out for me, Ken, two moments. I'm going to go through this because this is a story I've wanted to tell on air. I've never really been able to. But going way back to 2015 when the Tampa Bay Lightning were in the Cup final against the Chicago Blackhawks, he talked about Jonathan Taves and said, I want to be where he's at. That's what I want to be. I want to do the things that he's done and show up in the times that he's showed up. And he got there. So I always love the idea of a player saying a high standard being set and chasing that standard down. I've got miles of admiration for that. And then the next story to talk about is when you and I covered the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup, was just the absolute all-out leadership that he showed when they went down and just got absolutely destroyed in the first two games of that series. Now, I know they don't end up going on and winning, but the Tampa Bay Lightning had looked like they were not in the same building as the Colorado Avalanche at that time. And Steve Stamkos came out afterwards in an interview that I was in a scrum and said, if anyone out there thinks that we're done, think again. And he came out and put his money where his mouth was the next day. The Tampa Bay Lightning went out and they won that game, made things close in game 4. If it had gone their way in game 4, that may be a different series. But I just thought there was absolute maximal leadership. And I'd always thought this about Steven Stamkos. He started out as just like a real pure kind of scoring kind of guy, and he didn't have that grit level of a player like Jonathan Taves. And sometimes it's harder to be a leader when you don't come with that kind of thing built in. That's why Patrick Kane isn't the captain of the Chicago Blackhawks and Jonathan Taves is. But I thought he did a real good job getting to be a leader. It is sad to get to the point to see him playing the way he does consistently with the Nashville Predators and the way he did on a night like tonight. Like, Ken, I think if you're taking a look at this Nashville Predators team, that the way out of this is just nothing other than hard work or doing the right things over and over again, like we talked about with the Winnipeg Jets. But beyond that, if you're Steve Stamkos and you want out and you want a team like maybe the Winnipeg Jets trying to pluck you out of Nashville towards the end of the year, shouldn't you be playing and showcasing what you can be to that team? Like I would find it as a general manager personally extremely hard to trade for Steve Stamkos right now, because I look at a game like tonight and yeah, Steven Stamkos, I think he had multiple points in his last 2 games, so it looked like he was waking up. I talked with Andrew Brunette before the game. He said, well, the thing with us, it's consistency. What are they going to do tonight? And we're at the stage where we don't know what they're going to do tonight. And I thought for the most part, the Nashville Predators fought pretty hard to try to get 3 straight wins going here. And they were submarined twice by a guy who's supposed to be a star player, one of their highest paid players, who basically did not put anywhere near the effort required on that play on the Cole Perfetti goal and on the Nino Niederreiter goal. That's way too easy for Nino Niederreiter to score and to skate past a guy like that. And the tricky part about that is not only do you become a problem because you make too much money, and not only do you become a problem because you're not scoring and you're not holding up your end of the bargain. Not only do you become a problem because you're a player in his 30s and now it's a bit of an extended contract and it becomes hard to trade you. Not only do you become a problem because you're not doing the things that you should be doing, and it's costing you games, which I think it did kind of in this game here tonight. But on a team that's starting to have a little bit of a youth movement, they've played 5 players this year with less than 30 games of NHL experience. Like, that's the standard you're setting. Like, it's funny, Ken, because we've talked about this and we've, spilled a lot of ink when it comes to Jonathan Toews. And yes, Jonathan Toews is not producing the way that the Jets need him to be producing. He's not producing the way a lot of people expected him to be producing. I'm standing here not saying for a second that the Winnipeg Jets don't need more from Jonathan Toews, but I don't think there's a night Jonathan Toews has played this year where a young guy could look at the standard being set by that guy and say he's not gutting it out as much as he can possibly gut out. That's the tricky part, is when your established players are setting a standard in front of your young players and they think that that is an okay standard for a legendary player to be setting. That's missing the mark. That's rough. I don't like to see it. To me, I got to say, it's tough to see what Steve Stamkos has become in this situation here. It was tough to see him play tonight and what he did to his team in that situation. I just wanted to bring. Oh, sorry. You wanted to touch on that?
No, I think we're done with Stamkos. I think I was just going to mention Toews.
But before we move on from Stamkos, let's give him the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, because oh boy, his team could sure use it. And I think just for every Steve Stamkos fan out there, he could use it. And that means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. You wanted to touch on Jonathan Toews.
We can go there later. Actually, you brought the comment up. I want you were in the building here. I want you to ask you first about the lack of a challenge. I have some thoughts also, but you go because you were there. Maybe you have a better thought than I do.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That was brought up. Asked here by, sorry, I don't know.
Mr. Ajax 711 or 711.
Yeah, it says, why didn't Bruno Brunette challenge the Connor goal? I think, and this is just, I didn't see an explanation after this afterwards. What I feel like I saw at the end there was an assistant coach who was looking down and looked a little bit panicked to me, Ken, and was holding up the hand as the hold on sign, hold on sign, hold on sign. And in the end, Brunette is sitting, watching him, taking his cue from them, because that's how it goes. We're challenging it, we're not challenging it, and they're getting close to dropping the puck. And I think what happens is behind the scenes, they don't get it done. Like the coaching staff, like this would be the equivalent, and there isn't an equivalent because I've never heard of this happening with the Jets. Sounds like Maddie's one of the best with the Winnipeg Jets, and it would never happen. It sounds to me like, or what we saw, because if you read lips, and there's twice tonight, I found myself reading lips. His response is to look away from the coach, look to center ice, realize that they ran out of time, and just mutter to himself, F off, as in like, I cannot believe we're not in a position as an organization to maybe in a crucial moment be challenging something like this. So what I think is that he didn't get an answer from his coaching staff on whether or not they were going to challenge that. And so the question of why they didn't challenge it. Now we could get into the why.
No, do you think it should have been waived off? Do you think they would have taken it off the board for goal interference?
I do. I think that they would have. Oh, I do. Yeah, because he went into the crease when he moves to go across. Mark Scheifele is in his way right before the puck comes that way. Mark Scheifele puts his hand on the goaltender's shoulder and pushes off of him. I'm not saying Mark Scheifele tried to push him out of his way, but Mark Scheifele is riding his own bounce to get him off of him. I think those are all clear examples of things in the past that we've said, well, how is the goalie supposed to set himself if there's someone in there right as the shot is being taken, pushing off of him? It's a distraction thing. And it's one of those things where I do think that he was taken into the crease to a degree. I don't think he fought that much to not get there. And now it could have gone either way, Ken, and because it's one of those ones where you need the evidence to turn it over. Right. Maybe I'm off on this one. I just think that they've been extremely, extremely sensitive with goaltender interference. And I do think that if I'm right and that the replay room did not get it going fast enough for the Nashville Predators, I mean, regardless, Ken, I would have challenged it.
Oh, sure.
I would have challenged it because that's just too crucial a point in that game, right?
Yeah,
it's 3-2. I'd rather go in and see if we can't kill another penalty than and give myself the chance or the opportunity to keep it a 1-goal game, especially the way they've been pushing at that moment.
Agreed, but I also don't think it would have been overturned. Personally, I'm with Frosty here. I thought the goalie had time to reset. It also, I agree with you, Sean. Scheifele 100% in the blue paint, but I thought he was taken in there. I don't think that was one that was obvious because I don't know that he voluntarily went into the blue paint. I thought he was brought in by the defenseman. But anyways, I'm 100% with you. I would have challenged it regardless. Jets power play, yes, we know it's in the top 10 in the NHL, but it had barely generated anything in the game. In that moment, I think that, even if you're unsure, I think you err on the side of, taking your chances and because it's not as clear cut as many people would like it to be. I think there would have been a benefit in challenging.
Yeah. Tico Napoli has it right here too. The call on Comrie was totally not goalie interference in that situation. I just think this is rich from the always tilted in the Jets direction. Like, listen, I'm the guy who says, let's keep away from the refs. You'll notice there, I said what I think. I didn't say the refs got this wrong or got that wrong or whatever the situation, because I hate going in that direction. But it also makes no sense to go in there in a podcast that's specifically about one team, because this is just the example over and over and over again that your favorite team is always getting jobbed by the refs and that the other team is always getting away with things. Again, I've said it a million times, folks. Guess what? Every building you go into, someone is chanting that the ref sucks. Okay. It's not just in Winnipeg. It's not your team. Everybody thinks that they're hard done by. So I think things like that are a little bit rich, especially with the guy who usually just likes to stay away from the play calling, because it's almost like trying to break up, like a marital spat. You know what I mean? You don't go to your next door neighbors and try and break up a marital spat, because it's just, too much has happened, too much has gone in too many different ways. Stay out of it. Stay out of it is what I think. Let's go back to Luke Schenn.
Sure.
Here's something I wanted to put out there. I do know that a buddy of mine who's down here watching the game tonight was telling me that he was really upset that Elias Salomonson was pulled out of the lineup. And I'd said, in a conversation with Scott Arniel, I think he's just there trying to, again, they want him to be a 15-year player with the Winnipeg Jets. And has he played poorly? And does Salomonson have reason to have low confidence? I don't think he has. That said, he's -5, and all the people out there who want to just throw out those stats, I'll throw out your fancy stats, whatever. When you're a guy who's on the ice 5 times for goals that end up in the back of your net, and one of those is the game winner where the puck leaks and gets going the other way, I think there's potential for you to have a little bit of an up and down confidence kind of swing. Now, it sounds like Scott Arniel said, right away afterward, don't worry about it, kid, move on and stuff like that. But I'm okay. Like, I'm not going to get in Scott Arniel's kitchen, who's in the room with that player,
Yeah.
and is talking to that player and feeling the pulse of the room. If Scott Arniel thought he wanted to pull him out to make sure that, he was preserving his confidence, I think that's the right thing to do in that situation. I'm not going to interject myself there. The other thing I'll say, though, is one of the things that Scott Arniel just quickly had said, because I'm going to just make this point to pass it on to you. Scott Arniel had said before the game that he challenged his team and said, look, we need to up our compete level. Every guy in this room needs to up their compete level. And if we don't, we're not winning. This isn't turning around. It's going to start quite simply with upping your compete level. And I thought he put Luke Schenn into the game, and people can say whatever they want about Luke Schenn over this year. He walked in, he competed, he ended up on the scoreboard. He threw a really big hit in a game where I thought the physicality of the Winnipeg Jets was extremely important. Logan Stanley carried it as well. But Luke Schenn, I thought, made a difference in this game and made a difference to the compete level of the Winnipeg Jets, which was told by the coach is what they required to turn this around, and they end up with a win here tonight following that blueprint.
Yeah, it's another. We don't always agree, and again, coaches are never perfect, but this is another example of the coach knowing his team better than almost anybody else, right? So he knows what's at stake in the game. He also, after challenging guys, wants to put in one of his more competitive players, right? So I think another thing too with Solomonson, Sean, I think if this is not a 3-4 situation, maybe he stays with him over Colin Miller. And again, no offense to Colin Miller, but I mean, you're bang on. I mean, plus minus is kind of a dinosaur-y stat at times. These are 5-5-on-5 goals he's been on for. So this is not like a bunch of empty net. He's not getting a bunch of dashes because he's been on for empty net goals against. That's dinging up your stats. So again, I've liked a lot of things from Solomonson, but I have no problem with them going out. I also would like to see more of him on this road trip. So I think like two things can be true. But anyways, I do think that that's maybe factored in. If this game is tomorrow night, I think maybe we still see Solomonson in the game, but also giving him, he went in against two really fast teams. I think that it's not a terrible thing for someone like Solomonson to go up and watch a game from the press box and see some of the things, the speed of the game. I think you often see that you maybe have a little bit more time. Like, again, I think his decision-making has been pretty good considering the pace that the games have been played at. But I think when you have a chance to watch a game from that level, again, this is not preseason or anything, Sean. This is, yes, it's a back-to-back, but I think there would have been some benefit for Solomonson watching. But I would like to see him back in the lineup on Monday. Now we'll see if that's the case or not.
Logan Stanley, I just when we come to the kind of compete level thing about it, I thought that we've gotten to the stage in Logan Stanley's career, Ken, where when the Winnipeg Jets would talk about what they thought that he was capable of doing was like he's just doing it now, right? Like it's not that thing that showed up every once in a while where we used to say, man, if Logan Stanley played like this all the time, this is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets could use in their lineup. This is Logan Stanley plays like this all the time now. Like he's mean in front of the net. Yeah. It seems like it's once a game that something starts up because he gives that little bit of an extra jab, rides that line. For the most part, he does end up in the box here or there, and sometimes he oversteps it and takes it too far. And that's what it's going to happen when you're asked to play that role. But for the most part, Stanley gets a lot of licks in on the opposition team that he doesn't get penalized for. That drives the opposition absolutely crazy. I thought he had their focus to a degree. It started the game out. That fight that he gets in with Michael McCarron, I think, is one of the things that kind of sets the tone for the compete level that the Jets were looking for. I'm not surprised that on a day where their head coach was calling for an increased compete level that you found Logan Stanley out there throwing the mitts in that situation. Good on him for doing it, because so often in the past it seems like it would end up being Adam Lowry who had to do something like that. So I just think that Logan Stanley this is just another example of the Winnipeg Jets over the last number of years when they kept Logan Stanley in, warts and all, game after game after game. And last year under Scott Arniel, he really started to get a runway of games in underneath him. This is what they were looking for. Logan Stanley has become that defenseman. Never mind the points, and I know he's got 9 points, and things like that are looking good. He seems to play off the point very well. But the Logan Stanley, the Winnipeg we're looking for, I believe, has arrived. He's here. There's no doubt about that. And now it's about refining it and seeing if he can get better and better and better at a game that he's already established his own personal blueprint for.
And Sean, because you were involved in a lot more of them than I was, tell folks at home who may not know why Logan Stanley was upset during the fight after the punches thrown by Michael McCarron.
So you'll notice what happens is Michael McCarron gets them down to the ground. Michael McCarron almost really hasn't thrown a punch before that. It's considered in bad form. And dishonorable to take a punch at a guy when he's down and when you're down as well. It's supposed to end after that. Now, Ken, I'll say this. I've been in positions where I've done something similar before, or had something like that happen before. And when it does happen, it's typically an example of pure hate.
Right.
A fight started maybe because something really, really untoward was done. Like I've started fights before concussed because I got cheap shotted before the fight started. And in that fight, I continued on afterwards and made sure that, after I'd won that fight, I got extra licks in because I felt like that the cheap shot that had happened beforehand, I had retribution for. So I don't think it's necessarily uncommon that something like that happens if a fight starts out like that. That fight didn't start out like this. It kind of started a little bit squared off. And Michael McCarron seems like he's kind of more interested in a wrestling match. And then it looks like it becomes opportunistic, right? Like he got Logan Stanley down on the ground. And now it's like, hey, maybe I can get a free shot.
And the linesman was in too.
Linesman's in as well. Now, people are going to say, and if you had someone from the Nashville Predators fan base here, they'd say, well, what are you talking about? Logan Stanley threw 2 punches afterwards when the linesman was right there. Well, yeah, because at that point, this decorum is shattered.
Self-defense.
It's kind of like everything goes. So the interesting part about that, I was talking about lip reading. Michael McCarron gets up and he's pissed. And Logan Stanley says something. And Michael McCarron says, well, we'll go again. And I wonder if the game became tight and they just had to let it sit. But it will be interesting. Those two have fought 3 times now.
Yep.
The fourth one, keep an eye out for that fourth fight, because this is a situation now where I think, if there was probably a little bit of anger towards each other before this. This is the kind of thing that can bleed into hate, and this is the kind of thing that can bleed a little bit into retribution, which means that Logan Stanley, I think quite often when he fights, he's more fighting for defense. He'll throw a few punches here and there, but Logan Stanley strikes me as the kind of fighter. Dustin Byfuglien was actually one of these. As tough as Dustin Byfuglien was a guy who usually fought not to get hit. There's a difference, because a lot of other fighters out there fight to get as many licks in as they can. And a lot of those guys don't mind taking a few licks to get in there. Logan Stanley strikes me as a guy who at all times is trying whatever he can to not get hit. And if that means that there's no punches thrown in the fight, or no real punches, or definitely no punches landed, and if it means there's no chance of him landing a punch, he usually will go in that direction. I would think maybe the next time he and Michael McCarron square off, that maybe he would be hit, leaning the head in a little bit more to try and get some shots in, because he wants to land some retribution.
And I think too, Sean, they showed it on the broadcast. I mean, I think that Logan did get away with an elbow on McCarron as well earlier on. I think it was kind of one of those self-defense moves along the boards when McCarron was coming at him. But it definitely was one of those things that maybe kind of fell by the wayside in the game. But Stanley was very physical, Sean. He was very involved in the game. And that's the kind of game, again, we've talked about it. That's the kind of game Logan Stanley has to play. I mean, you need to be involved physically, move the puck well at times for sure. Stanley finishing with 3 hits and a blocked shot. That's the type of game that Logan Stanley needs to play on that third pairing. And Sean, too, I think right now we'll stay on defense for a little bit here. Dylan Samberg, who had a rare off night yesterday against the Carolina Hurricanes, never mind the 3 assists. Dylan Samberg was back to being Dylan Samberg today. What'd you see from him in the building this evening?
I'll be honest, and I've said this before. This was a broadcast where, a lot of what I see is what a lot of people see on TV. And a lot of times I'll be working on things that are not necessarily being shown. My parts of the broadcast are to bring different kind of elements. And sometimes while I'm preparing those elements, I'm not putting the sharpest eye on the game, but I couldn't agree with you more. Last game that we saw from Dylan Samberg was, like you said, a rare off night. It like I explained in the last show, it felt like he's a player that's seeing a team struggling and tries to do a little bit too much. He found himself on the right side of things here on this night and took another step forward. Maybe his best game since he came back. Now, I want to say this, regardless of what I've said at the beginning of the podcast, where I said I'm trying to look at this through different eyes and not hold the Jets up against the Jets of the past. It still doesn't change the fact that a lot of what I see this lens through tonight is that the Winnipeg Jets have played a pretty consistent game throughout the year, and when they win, it usually looks like the degree of difficulty has gone up, and when they lose, it looks like the degree of difficulty has gone down. I'll say tonight, this wasn't a domination station, as Ken likes to call it, by the Winnipeg Jets. It was a fairly even game. The Jets are probably just better at putting the puck in the back of the net. Well, the numbers would tell us entirely that the Winnipeg Jets are better at putting the puck in the back of the net than the Nashville Predators are. And this is just another example of what I said long ago, and it's played out exactly like that since, that the Winnipeg Jets game that they play consistently is good enough to beat bottom feeder teams, and it's not good enough to beat upper echelon teams. But all of that said, I wanted to acknowledge that Dylan Samberg's game tonight, which I think is probably his best since he returned, does come against a team that made some egregious mistakes and definitely has its issues. But that said, I don't think that doesn't mean it's not a step further up the ladder of the game of Dylan Samberg.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's exactly what the Jets needed. We've talked about how the top line has carried the Jets offensively, which is 100% true. There have been a lot of nights when Josh Morrissey has carried the Jets defense core. And, today Dylan Samberg had a really strong game, both offensively and overall, I think. And as you mentioned, Shen too, 4 hits in the game. So I think the defense core as a whole played the type of game that it needed to. And again, it's something it's 5-man team defense, but they definitely did their part in this game as well. And we'll get to the secondary scoring after a few other things we get through here.
I just wanted to kind of bring this up here. Marvin Moore, which is Uncle Marv. Uncle Marv says, "Done eating, get away from the trough." He's talking to me here, Ken. I just wanted to let everybody know that Uncle Marv is down here in Nashville. I had to make sure I brought him along so he wouldn't raid the wine fridge while I was gone. I needed to keep my eye on him. So I got my eyes on you, Uncle Marv. It's probably in his hotel room raiding the bar right now before we head out again later on tonight. Okay. Before we get to the secondary scoring, I want to get to the Winnipeg Jets top line. And why I wanted to is the idea of how quickly they scored. And then after that, Ken, I thought they almost had a little bit of a night off. Like if you looked at the lull that existed outside of that and then outside of that goal by Kyle Connor, that there's a lull. So this could be one of those games you look at and say, well, why didn't they have a better game against the Nashville Predators? This team's been carrying this team for so long. I think it says something that the Winnipeg Jets top line popped in to still score 2 goals and kind of take the night off, but like make sure that they were pulling on the rope and contributing maybe with a little more minimal effort and just putting the team in a situation where we've got the 2 goals to tie us up with this Nashville Predators team. Maybe the depth scoring could head out here and win this game for us for a change.
Yeah, I don't think they went. I don't think that's the mentality they took, but definitely is the way that it went in the game. And again, we also know the other part of that equation. Ryan O'Reilly plays incredibly hard against Mark Scheifele. We saw it in 2019, and we've basically seen it throughout his time in the Central Division, no matter what team he's playing for. So, yeah, it's a tough gig. People can say whatever they want, and yes, the Predators are struggling, but Ryan O'Reilly plays incredibly hard. He's still a very strong two-way player, very good checker. And Sean, you talked about Stamkos. If you want to be moved, show up and show people why you should be traded for. Ryan O'Reilly has expressed all kinds of confidence, wants to stay in Nashville, all of those things, but this guy's a competitor, so he knows the best way to get noticed for him is to show up and play incredibly hard against a guy like Mark Scheifele. So I think that's part of the reason maybe why offense wasn't quite as easy for that line. And as you mentioned, Sean, I mean, it's a humongous goal to get them out of the gate because they've been struggling and falling behind. And the other part is they get the insurance marker at a time, as you mentioned. It went from 3-0 to 3-2, and all of a sudden the Jets are struggling here. And you're wondering if they're going to be able to hang on. And there's Luke Schenn pounding a slap shot through Kyle Connor with a great tip. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, they certainly did more than their part, scoring 2 out of the 5 goals. But yeah, the secondary scoring finally showed up, and it needed to.
Yeah. Ken, what do you think? Because I talked with Scott Arneal, and he talked about saying that the bottom 9 forwards, which is which is a way of saying all the forwards outside of the top line, had really been squeezing the stick. And because they'd been squeezing the stick, the mistakes that they made, the times the puck ended up in the back of their net, it just highlights it that much more, and they squeeze the stick that much more. Do you think this is the kind of game that allows them to release the grip a little bit, or do you think that's kind of got to be done one player individually, like one domino at a time, rather than just clicking one?
It's sort of, I don't see it as one size fits all, Sean, no, but I do think that it allows, the jiggling allows there to be some domino effect to a degree, but I don't think it's a, wave the wand and one guy cures all, one guy scoring cures everything. But seeing others get involved, I think that pushes other people to get involved. So, I mean, for me, it's emblematic too. I think the Perfetti goal is a great example, Sean, that on a shift like that, where all 3 of the guys on the line are struggling offensively, all 3 make an important play and get a puck touch. Perfetti along the wall, Taves one-hander east-west to Nemestikov, who hasn't had a point in 11 games, gets it in front to Perfetti, who finally bangs one home after getting a zillion chances of late. So that can be a big boost for the line. And then you see what it meant for Niederreiter, right? Niederreiter gets a late cookie. When you've been struggling to put the puck in the net, I think it was 1 goal in 12 games for Niederreiter. Getting 2 is important, even if 1 is into the empty net. And again, especially because 1 comes off the rush, Sean. We talk he jokes all the time that his office is around the blue paint. And, the joke was a couple of years ago, you could add up the amount of goals scored around the blue paint and it wouldn't even get you to the blue line because so many of them are coming from around the crease. But scored on the rush today. I think that was important for the line. And again, the tenacity by Alex Iafallo on the empty netter, Sean, is a great example, right? This is a high flip. We see high flips, and sometimes high flips get teams in trouble when it's in the neutral zone. This one got all the way into the offensive zone from Dylan Sandberg, and then Alex Iafallo just flat out beat the Predators' guy to the puck and won the battle. That created the empty net opportunities. So I think it can help. The 4th line, I think it didn't unlock for them, even though other guys had a bunch of secondary scoring opportunities, Sean. Again, Scott Arneal knows the pulse of the team more than you or I, but I think that I'll be surprised if we don't see Cole Koepke on either Monday or Wednesday, and I would say probably Monday.
You think Pearson and change up the lineup after that game tonight?
I would say that it was not a perfect template game that you couldn't. I don't think that you have to be. I don't think that you're married to the lineup. I don't think you're married to it.
So personally. I wonder if, to the point of what you're saying here, Nick Lynham says Schenn had the biggest roller coaster of a game. He was dreadful at turning the puck over defensively and costing the team both with goals and bad plays leading in, but adds 4 hits and 2 assists. I think you're at the stage where, and what we're kind of forgetting is when a team is so far off near perfection, like the Winnipeg Jets were last year, that a lot of times you're like picking your poison in a situation like that. Like, I know what you're saying, it wasn't the template game, but are the Winnipeg Jets at a stage where they could even be picky about a template game? At this stage, it's a win. At this stage, they won a game and managed to kind of hold it together. And the point I'm trying to get to in that is not being picky is I know Nick Lynham is saying this, and nowhere am I saying that Luke Schenn had a perfect game. I'll put his comment back up here, but I'm going to tell you right now, the Winnipeg Jets thought what they needed to win tonight was to up their compete level. And I can tell you right now, they felt like Schenn was going to add to that. They felt like he did add to that. The Winnipeg Jets will walk away from this game, regardless of the ugly warts that may have been on his game, and think, yes, but it helped us to win that game. Is it perfect? No. Is it, the formula to get to the playoffs? Probably not. But this is, when I talk about the new Winnipeg Jets compared to what they are last year, you have to get back into the conversations of balance, where last year the balance was just in there perfectly. And now it's got to be, well, we're going to add this, but we're going to lose a little bit of this, right? And we're going to give a little bit of this, and we're going to take away a little bit of that. That's where this Winnipeg Jets lineup is. I've said this before. I don't think you fix that without actually making acquisitions for the lineup. But that I'm not against the idea of, I know that clearly, listening and reading to these comments, the amount of Luke Schenn haters that have popped up in here, like I've said, it is entirely switched, and everyone who was on the Logan Stanley hate train has jumped off of that and jumped off to Luke Schenn's onto Luke Schenn. And when I say these things, and it's the same thing as I said with Logan Stanley last year, not a perfect player, but a player no less that at times brings a certain amount of value. You can see Logan Stanley's value increasing. The value that Luke Schenn brought to this game tonight wasn't in, and it's going to sound funny, but in, protecting the puck and making the perfect play and doing these kind of things. It was in the idea that he was going out, he was upping the compete level. That rubbed off on other players. Those are intangibles, and you can choose to believe that those don't exist. I've played enough sports where I think that they do, and it's just where the Winnipeg Jets are. They're a team that needs to take a look at, their add-ins aren't bulletproof. It's okay, we're going to lose this, but we think we're going to add this, and we think on this night, what we do add is going to put us over the top. And I truly think the Winnipeg Jets think that Luke Schenn did that for them tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I thought the change would come up front. One shot on goal between Pearson and Nyquist. So I did not see anything that says you must play those guys on the forward line.
Yeah, good point.
That's what I think. Again, if they're going to make a change for Solomonson, it's probably going to be Miller and not Schenn. And again, Nick, I'm not saying Luke was perfect either. Sean, you and I are in agreement. That second goal is on Comrie. That's Schenn is closest to the puck carrier. Yes, that shot can't go in there.
This is a good one. We're gonna have a quick conversation about this, Elias McCarthy, because I actually asked you the same thing earlier today, Ken. Not in the idea of the prospects Lambert and Chibi. Why not play more of the prospects Lambert, Chibi, even the Guspa? So I'd asked you today why you thought they had not brought David Gustafson back. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make this the Flame and Comfort hot take of the game, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. When you get down there, you're going to see it's one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. And Ken, before we have this conversation, I feel like I need to have it with a headband on my head. So let's go ahead and make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. We're digging down deep into the minors to take a look at who could solve some of the problems the Winnipeg Jets have. Just like you'll see Myers Drugs digs down as deep as they need to go to make sure they take care of all your pharmaceutical needs, any of your supplement needs or your health food needs. You can, what's the matter?
I need you to click it. Sorry. There it is. Sorry.
You can,
sorry.
head on down there, talk with Glenn, talk with Jonah, talk with anyone down there. They'll make sure that you walk out of there a happy customer. And of course, they deliver anywhere in the city. So take advantage of that and make sure you tell them Kenny and Renny sent you when you get down there. Okay. My answer quickly, I think we've talked about it before. I, again, spilled probably too much ink on this. I think where Lambert and Chibrikov are, they don't feel that those players are at the stage where they can play the system to the degree they want. And it's funny to say that because I know they haven't reached that with the players that they have in there. But I think there would be a little bit of an admission that if you're playing the kids, you're not playing to win it all this year. And I don't think the Winnipeg Jets are at a stage where they're where I'm at, where they entirely think they are this year what I think they are this year. But I think if you say, okay, we're just going to turn it over to the kids at this stage to see, we might as well to try and find these things. It's an admission of what they're doing isn't working and they still have a plan to go in that direction. Gustafsson doesn't make sense to me though, Ken, because every time they brought David Gustafsson into the lineup last year, he almost did a perfect execution of the Jets blueprint and almost always had an effect on the game when they brought him in. And he did it very consistently, and he did it far more often, I thought, than Pearson has so far this year, or Koepke has this year, or Nyquist has so far this year. To me, I'm truly, honestly baffled that they haven't brought up David Gustafsson at some point and given him an opportunity to at least put the pressure on those players and say, this is how you do it. And if you don't figure it out soon, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of this, and I'm going to find myself in the lineup.
Yeah, fair. And just quickly on Lambert and Chibrikov, this is very simple. Yes, we've been talking about secondary scoring being a problem, and conceivably Chibrikov and Lambert could help in that area, even though they only had one goal between the two of them to start the year. Scott O'Neill has those other guys that we've mentioned, or you mentioned, Pearson, Nyquist, etc., Koepke. These are penalty killers. If Brad Lambert was a penalty killer, which he isn't, he could be in that mix. So David Gustafsson is a guy that can be used on the penalty kill, Sean. So yes, I mean, he would be in consideration for a call-up. That means waiving. Well, in this case, it would mean waiting for Pionk to be back. Then you could just send Solomonson back and you don't have to waive someone. But Gustafsson's interesting, right? 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points in 19 games with the Moose. That's second on the team behind Mason Shaw. Sean, we've been talking about the need for speed. Walker Dewar is a guy that I should have sent in the text to you that I, slipped my mind. He's got 6 goals, 11 points. He's really speedy and very physical as a player when engaged. So that would be another guy that would be on that list of guys as a potential. And Phil DiGiuseppe, I mean, he won a Calder Cup last year. He's a veteran, lots of NHL experience, in terms of the skating. And that's the biggest thing for me. David Gustafsson is he's a complete player, but his ceiling is limited in terms of offense generated. He's not an overly physical player, and he's not a burner. So I think those are 3 things, despite all the things I think he does incredibly well, that has sort of limited his ceiling now in terms of the 12th or 13th forward role where the Jets could see him fitting in. But yes, Sean, to your point, I mean, this is a guy that played the system really well. He's incredibly sharp defensively. And at a time when your team is struggling defensively, it would be a guy that would be maybe worth giving a shot for sure. I think they're looking for a little bit more speed out of that job is how I view it.
Oh, they're looking for people that can score as well. And typically David Gustafsson is not that guy. I can say this for all you folks out there. If you want to score, you can score a great rate with the Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca rates for more. Ken, can you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
Yes, sir. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All right, Ken, time for our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got?
Oh man, I thought I had yes. This is a good one. I thought I had one written down for you, but I don't know that I ever sent it. So let's see what we can come up with. You know what? I don't want this to sound like a cop out because we gave it to Milic last time, but to me, this is Eric Comrie saying, "I've got you covered." Winnipeg Jets. We know that Eric has had a very strong year starting the year, and the last couple starts hadn't gone particularly great. And not that he was to blame for those wins, but after being pretty steady of mostly 3 or under, his team didn't give him as much run support previously. This time they had him covered with 4 goals, but I thought it was important, even with the second one, that I think Eric went down a little bit too early. Again, I'm not a goalie expert. That's just how I viewed it. I think Eric would say he probably should have had it. He still had them covered for the majority of this hockey game. So again, honorable mention to Luke Schenn for those 4 hits, as you mentioned, in the 2 points. But I think it's an Eric Comrie stabilizer type of game. I think because if you can be 2 or less, we always hear your backup's got to give you a chance to win. Even when your team is struggling offensively, if you give up only 2 goals, you will give your team a chance to win, even if it's struggling to score.
For sure. And I wanted to make this clear too, again, and I've brought this up and I've started doing this because I did it last game that he was playing. And I said, I don't think Connor Hellebuyck gets scored that second goal. I don't think he does. Someone brought it up. Connor Hellebuyck maybe doesn't allow another one of those goals. And I don't think what we should, I don't want this to turn into every time there's a goal that the style of goaltending that Connor Hellebuyck plays compared to Eric Comrie, I think Hellebuyck would have stopped. That we say, okay, well, he let in 3 goals tonight, and because Connor Hellebuyck wouldn't have let in that one, Connor Hellebuyck only would have let in 2. I'd said this, at the beginning, at the top of the show, if people were watching, everyone who would talk about that, because, and we talked about it, my producer, we're talking about a national audience. So this clearly is a local audience, the Kenny and Renny audience. Yeah. But a lot of people are going to take a look at where the Winnipeg Jets have been going lately, and they're going to say, well, it's because they lost their goaltender, and everyone would say it's simple as that. The numbers show that this slide started well before Connor Hellebuyck was injured, 2 weeks beforehand, essentially. And the numbers show that the Winnipeg Jets aren't scoring, and that's a big problem. And they're having a little bit more goals go in their net. Now, you could add that part and say maybe there's more goals going in because Connor Hellebuyck's not in the net, but you're not telling me that the Winnipeg Jets are scoring more because of Connor Hellebuyck.
Right.
Like the point that we were talking about before is like the Winnipeg Jets issues as they've been unfolding over the last basically the month, because I'd said it in the show, since November 4th, the Winnipeg Jets had the worst record in the entire NHL. That's not just the loss of one player. That's a whole bunch of things at play here. So I don't want to turn this into Connor Hellebuyck would have stopped that. Now he would have had one less goal or whatever. That's not what I'm seeing out there. I just am saying, and to your point here tonight, Ken, he allowed 2 goals, and I thought he played really good and gave his team a chance on this night. You nailed it.
909 save percentage in the 2 wins that he's had.
He's the Johnston Group Got You Covered player of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is your Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group's Got You Covered player of the game, which brings us to our hashtag, the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, you know what? I've been seeing, it is the time of year when the old Christmas lights and decorations are starting to come up. So I'm going to give it to the old snow angel here from the first period. I think it was there was a sequence with Svechkov, Reed Schaefer, and Svechkov. Luke Schenn was involved. He batted one of the pucks down, but eventually Eric Comrie got down in the old snow angel and made the save. So I also like the one-timer off Yossi, but since 'tis the season, the calendar will flip to December by the time we have our next broadcast. So I'm going with the Snow Angel save by Comrie as my keg save of the game.
I got more involved in the penalty that occurred from it, but did Comrie stop the puck on that play where he drew the penalty? Did he happen to get his pad on the puck? Because I thought the aggression originally that he showed jumping out of the net.
Oh, sure. When Yost went to the net. Yeah, that was a good save too, for sure. Yeah.
I just thought one of the things that I think that he does really well, if you're talking about the difference in style between him and Connor Hellebuck, it's not big and boring, but there are times like that where I think he gets involved. Connor Hellebuck is an aggressive goaltender, especially how he tries to break up plays with his stick. But I thought for me that was the
it was a good play.
Hashtag the keg save of the game, and that's mine. That's Ken's. Doesn't really matter for either of us, as long as we blather on about it, because it matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations there in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be at Beer League. At Beer League, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations there in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, time for you to go to Broadway. But just quickly, for folks who don't know, I'm in Arizona and just had a fabulous day today. Sean, I sent you the note. I think maybe I didn't want to bother you during the broadcast, but 38 on the front today. I did cough up a bit of a hairball on the back, 44 on the back for 82, but 11 pars today at the Duke at Rancho El Dorado. So it was a fun day. One more round on the Manitoba Golf Tour for 2025, and hopefully we can do even better on Monday. But fun day today. But now go have fun.
Folks,
sorry I couldn't be there.
Folks, I hope you. Yeah, you bet. I hope you realize that the death of the Kenny and Renny podcast has already been spelled out. It will be when Ken goes pro as a golfer and doesn't have time for any of us anymore. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for coming along for the ride. We love taking you along for the ride. If you do enjoy going along for that ride, we hope you enjoy our sponsors who help keep this ride going for us. That's Jim Patterson Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, and of course the Keg. Thanks to them. Thanks to all of you. We will reconvene and do this again Monday Night Hockey as the Winnipeg Jets play a team that I just can't get a gauge on, the Buffalo Sabres. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.